Hello to all of you 7th grade. This is your English teacher Dana from Ru'al Farouk Academy. Today we are going to complete our structure by answering the questions in your student's book, page 62, and workbook, page 51. So please prepare your books and be ready for our class. The outcomes of our lesson today: students should be able to revise the structure, answer the questions on a student's book, page 62, and answer the questions on workbook, page 51. And now let's start with your student's book, page 61, and let's read the paragraph on your student's book and recognize the articles and how to use it. Grandfather wanted George to go to Mr. Duffy's house to collect a present. Here we put a present because present, yes, هدية بشكل عام. And we mentioned it for the first time. The present was for George's little cousin. The present هاي الأولى اللي احنا ذكرناها بالأول جينا ذكرناها مرة تانية. So we have to put the present was for George's little cousin. Sally. George was happy to go. He soon arrived at a tall house and knocked on the door. A tall house, yes, we mentioned it for the first time, and هو tall house. ما حددنا بالضبط أنو house. And knocked on the door. Why do we put the here? Because we know which door that George knocked, اللي هو تاع التall house. Mrs. Duffy opened it and invited him in. In the kitchen, George noticed bowls of plums. Why we don't use any articles on bowls and plums or of plums and peaches? Yes, because they are plural nouns that mentioned for the first time. هدول plural nouns إذا ما نستخدم لا ولا أن وذكرناهم لأول مرة إذا ما حنستخدم ذا. So here no articles for these nouns. On the table. Which table؟ اللي هي الموجودة بالكيتشن تاع Mrs. Duffy. A delicious smell of simmering fruit wafted past his nose. Flowers, also plural noun, mentioned for the first time. We don't put any article. Filled the small courtyard. We know which courtyard. This is courtyard الموجودة بhouse Mr. Duffy. So we have to put the لأنه إحنا عم نحكي عن إشي معين اللي هي الكورتيارد تاعت الهاوس تاع Mr. Duffy. The flowers اللي حكينا عنها بالسنتنس الأولى. The flowers were white, pink and crimson. On one corner stood an old peach tree. So ليش؟ لأنه old peach tree. Yes, not a specific tree. And we have to put an because we have vowel. And near the tree, which tree? Yes, اللي ذكرناها قبل. Was a small open door. It was the door to Mr. Duffy's workshop. George stepped inside. Mr. Duffy, leaning over his workbench, tools, plural, no article, were hanging on the wall. We know which wall اللي هو behind him. احنا حددنا أنه wall كان هو مرتكي عليه. The tools were well used but clean. التولز بنعرف أنه tools اللي عم نحكي عنها. So this noun is a specific something. So we have to put the were well used but clean. You have to recognize these notes that we are talking about. When you talk about something for the first time, use a or an. الإشي اللي بذكره لأول مرة بستخدم a or an. طبعا هو حسب الكلمة أو الاسم الموجود عندي. An for vowel and a للconsonant. When you mentioned it again, use the. إذا بدنا نذكر نفس الأشياء اللي ذكرناها بالأول لازم نستخدم ذا لأنها already صارت معروفة عندي. Note number 2, we use the when we know there is only one something. يعني specific something. عارفين عن شو إحنا عم نحكي. So we have to put the like what George knocked on the door. أنو دور؟ مش أي دور. No. الدور تاع house for Mr. Duffy. And the last one with plural nouns and uncountable nouns حكينا إحنا بنستخدم the لكن إذا انذكرت لي أول مرة we have to put the. We use no article when we are speaking in general. When we are speaking about something specific, we use the. Now we will move to activity number 3. Make sentences. We want to make sentences by using the articles. George collected a present for cousin. George collected a present for the first time. Yes, we mentioned the present before, so the present was for his cousin. Let's try to answer 2, 3, and 4. George arrived tall house. House belonged Mr. Duffy. So George arrived at, excellent, a tall house. The house, we mentioned it before, so we have to put the house belonged to Mr. Duffy. Number 3, George noticed an old tree, the tree in the corner. And the last one, Mrs. Duffy holding bowl full of fruit. Mrs. Duffy holding, yes, a bowl. The bowl was full of fruit. And now let's move to workbook page 51. Question number 1, complete the sentences with a, an, or the. So we want to complete these sentences by using the correct article. Number 1, in Mrs. Duffy's kitchen there was pretty bowl on the table. So here we mentioned the bowl for the first time, so we have to put, excellent, a. Here we have bowl was full of plums. We know which bowl we are talking about, so we have to use the bowl was full of plums. Number 2, in Mr. Duffy's workshop there was what? Screwdriver and chisel on the workbench. Yes, excellent. A screwdriver and a chisel on the workbench. Here we mentioned the screwdriver and chisel again, so we have to put, yes, excellent, the screwdriver was old but the chisel was new. Number 3, behind Mr. Duffy's house there was courtyard. In courtyard stood old peach tree. So at the first sentence we have to put a courtyard. We mentioned it again, so in the courtyard stood old peach tree. This is for the first time and we have old or vowel letter, so we have to put an old peach tree. The last one in this question, Sally's present was blue and white boat. So Sally's present was, yes, excellent, a blue and white boat across the middle of, yes, the boat like sailors sat on benches. Mr. Duffy picked up, yes, the sailor or a, yes, a sailor and showed it to George. We mentioned this sailor for the first time, so we have to put a. Then in the second sentence we mentioned the sailor again, so we have to put the sailor had dark hair because we know which sailor we are talking about. And now let's move to question number 2. Look at the picture. Complete the sentences with the articles. So If we want to take a look in the picture, we have to recognize that we are talking about specific things. So how can we complete this paragraph? Let's start. Clara arrived at last house on street. We know which house we are talking about and which street we are talking about, so we have to put, yes, excellent. Clara arrived at the last house on the street. Garden gate creaked as she opened it. يعني لما فتحتها طلع صوت الباب لما نفتحه تاع الجاردن gate. We are talking about it, so this is a specific thing that we are talking about. We have to put, excellent. The garden gate creaked as she opened it. Garden was untidy and neglected بمعنى مهملة. So we are talking about a specific garden. This is the garden that we are talking about. So here we have to put the garden was untidy and neglected. There were 2 white birds on roof and smoke. Look at the roof. Yes, we are talking about this roof. We have 2 birds and smoke was rising from what? Chimney. من المدخنة. Yes, excellent. There were 2 white birds on the roof and smoke was rising from the chimney. Someone was at home. Clara walked up path and knocked on front door. Yes, the path and knocked on the front door. So here we have to put the article the because we are talking about specific things. بنعرف عن شو عم نحكي، عن شيء محدد اللي هي الجاردن وهذا الهاوس وشو موجود فيه. So we have to put the article the. Now question number 3, complete the sentences with the or no article at all. If you think there should be no article, write X. So here just we want to put the or no article. When do we use no article? Excellent. If we have a plural noun or uncountable noun that mentioned for the first time. Number 1. This bakery usually sells delicious cakes. Delicious cakes mentioned for the first time, and this is a plural noun, so we have to put no article. Excellent. But cakes, we know which cakes we are talking about, which I bought today were horrible. So the cakes which I bought today, we know which cake we are talking about, so here we have to put the. But the cakes which I bought today were horrible. Number 2, that factory makes boots from highly quality leather, but so the factory makes no article. Boots from highly quality. No article, leather, but leather of boots in this shop is poor quality. Yes, in this shop we determine which leather and boots we're talking about, so we have to put, but the leather of the boots in this shop is poor quality. Number 3. Have you tried peaches from Mr. Duffy's tree? Yes, احنا عم نحكي عن البيتشز الموجودين ب Mr. Duffy's tree بشجرة Mr. Duffy. So we have to put excellent the. No, why not? Don't you like peaches بشكل عام? In general we asked about the peaches in general. And this is plural noun, so we have to put no article. Yes. The last one, Professor Brown is very interested in education, so no article. He is especially concerned with, yes, the education of teenagers. Here we have to put the education of teenagers. And this is the last question, my students. Number 4, write your own sentences using the words below. You have to write sentences as number 1, I love music, but the music on the CD is really terrible. If you want to mention it for the first time, you have to recognize that these words are plural nouns or uncountable, like snakes, tools, flowers, fruit, and music. So, yes, you have to write sentences if you want to mention it for the first time with no article, and complete the sentence with the same things by mentioning the same things in the first sentence by using the for these words. So, my students, here we've finished our class. Be ready for the next class and write your homework, then send me your answers on WhatsApp.